All right, welcome back to Bruise News. As you can see, Paul Fontaine, James B. McDaniel, and for the first time, Sam Schipman. She just finished recording Powerbombshells with Mel Gray, so that will be up on our YouTube channel, exclusive to YouTube. Later tonight, we're recording this Sunday afternoon. Everybody, I hope everyone's doing well. We'll save the how's it going and everything because I don't know if it's perfect for audio, but let's just get into stuff. And there's just so many things that were going on. It's funny because Paul and I were chatting on like Wednesday or Thursday going like, I don't really know if there's anything going on. And then boom, like Thursday, Friday happens. And then Saturday, there's a UFC show that we'll talk about that. From what I understand, the environment was pretty terrific. So first and foremost, the show, Bruise News. We don't break the news. We talk about broken news. And as Oliver Kopp maybe said, yeah, maybe we do bruise the news a little bit.
Absolutely.
We're just analyzing stuff. We're just talking about stuff. So before we get going, actually, you know what? I'll save this for a second. We're going to have some POAP news. Paul, you can close your ears. Paul doesn't understand the NFT stuff quite well yet.
I don't either.
But, you know, that's the good thing, though. No one really does, which is why it's kind of interesting because, you know, we'll see if this stuff works, then we're at the forefront of it. And if it doesn't, then we just forget about it.
We're like back in the Pride days when it comes to NFTs, where just anything goes. It's the Wild West. People will figure it out eventually.
Ryan's been trying to explain it to me on In the Clinch, so I think I'm starting to get it.
Yeah, he bought some of the UFC NFTs that came out, so I know he's kind of getting in early. But then he said that he wanted to quickly sell them as well. So there's that part of it, which is how do you make money from this stuff? We're not trying to make any money. We're trying to use it more in the space of collectibles and future utility and stuff like that. So, but I'll explain it in a little bit when we get into it a little bit more. All right, let's talk about the first story that I want to talk about, which is. Finally, Cody Rhodes was said to be signed. Now, we all sort of knew, like Dave Meltzer's been telling us, he's been on the books for over a week as far as having a match at WrestleMania. So that's not necessarily news that he's signed. We all assumed that he was there. He just hadn't shown up on TV yet.
I was the Alex Jones of this story, Garrett. I was the conspiracy theorist.
Oh, yeah, you were saying
I was like, this still could be a work. Yeah.
I thought it was a work for like the first few days, and then I was like, nah, I don't think it is.
I went back and forth, Sam, and I eventually came back to work.
I thought there was a chance that it wasn't a work, but that he'd end up in AEW, like just because WWE would pull their offer, but obviously that didn't happen.
Now it's official.
For his sake, I'm so happy that didn't happen because he would have so much. Yeah, he would look so bad for that. Okay, so we don't have to talk about him coming. We've been rumoring him. We've been talking about, oh, when's he going to show up? Doesn't look like he's going to show up on TV. It looks like the idea is to debut him at WrestleMania. I'm so worried that it's going to be like John Cena and The Undertaker again because that was so terrible. I don't think it'll be that bad, but I don't like the idea of Seth, you know, being so sad he doesn't have a match. Like, God, stuff is so dumb. But okay, so let's talk about Cody's roads to WrestleMania. It does look like a match with Seth. Have you guys heard any of the rumors as far as how they're going to get there? I haven't read anything. I know there's some stuff out there, but
the only thing I saw something about that he's supposed to be on the Mania after Raw, but that was like really the only info that I have. So I don't know if they're gonna like tease him on night one, like maybe have him be backstage or something, and then have him actually show up on the second, or if Rollins is going to be sad and he's just going to show up on night two and be like in his trunks ready to go.
Yeah, that whole idea just gives me bad memories of that John Cena and The Undertaker thing from a few years ago, where it is maybe the worst match of either's career. I don't know about the career, but such a poor representation of both men, and I was just so frustrated at the whole thing. And I hope they don't repeat it because Cody should come in big. Seth is one of the top 5 stars in the company. Like, this should be really, really meaningful.
You know, Garrett, well, I don't know anything about the build of this. What you just said is Seth is one of the top stars of the company. But right now, he is being presented on TV as such a loser that he can't even secure an appearance on a 2-night WrestleMania. And that really worries me for Cody's move here. Again, if he's coming in as a top guy, like he should come in as a top guy, I want him. I love Cody. I want him to come in as a top guy. This immediately has me worried at how he is like his opponent is looking like such a loser. He can't even get a talk show appearance on WrestleMania right now.
So let's get to Paul, because Paul is the one who watches all 3 hours of Monday Night Raw. I have to say, I only watch half of the show because I watched the Hulu version.
I'm sorry.
But I mean, I skip through entrances as people famously know.
So Paul, give me your sort of feel on this Seth storyline and how it could relate to Cody.
So what James is saying, I mean, on the surface makes sense, but I mean, you go back to the Cody thing the Cena thing. I mean, nobody thought Cena was not good enough to be on WrestleMania. It's just that, you're not going to put him in the 50-man battle royal. You're not going to put him in a random tag team match. Like, he's got to have something important. So I think what's going to happen is Seth is going to come out and he's going to make an open challenge to anyone in this locker room or any other locker room around the wrestling world. And you're going to get the Cody chance because everyone knows it's Cody. And when I say everyone, it's probably like 20%, but they're loud enough that it'll catch on.
And everybody else will follow.
Yeah. It's like Danhausen, when he debuted and people said the whole building went nuts. No, it was like 20%, but it caught on because everybody, like it's infectious. And so if they do that this week, by next week, you're going to have people with Cody signs and everything, and maybe even do a tease of the music or something, and then it's like, okay, that on WrestleMania, you're going to see Cody. Now, of course, they could do what Sam said and tease it on night 1 and then do it on night 2. Either way, like I know that they're there on night 1. I know that because Becky's wrestling on night 1. So, so I mean, and obviously they're there anyways, but I think they need to make it obvious. I don't think like just having a cold surprise is enough with something like this, especially if they don't make it obvious. Then that maybe leans me into what James is thinking, and like Cody is going to be like a mid-carder. And
it needs to be like you're like kind of both of you are saying. They can make it obvious, like CM Punk's debut, where nobody knew, but everybody knew.
Yeah.
And that seems that is not a bad way to do it, as evidenced by how AEW has done their surprises, which, you're not going to see the Google searches be super high, but in that particular fan base, that's all everybody's talking about. And I think I'm hopeful that they can do that with Cody here as well. Now, go ahead, Sam.
I was gonna say, I think they've got to do something to kind of bring the buzz back with Cody, because it's definitely died off. It's not as hot as it was right when he left, and then it took some time, and then there was did Vince change his mind because he lost leverage? Is he going to end up in Ring of Honor now? And so now that we know he's coming, like I think, and people kind of expected it with Jacksonville, and then obviously the Scott Hall stuff happened. So I don't know if they decided to pull it back, or if they're going to do Chicago, which is obviously a really big AEW market right now too. But I think they need to do something to build up buzz and make people care about Cody again, because he's already starting to get the mid-carder field, which is kind of where a lot of us expected. Like, we thought he'd come in hot for a couple months and then he'd be back to where he was before he left. And at this point, it almost seems like they're setting him up for that. But if they're putting him against Seth Rollins, then obviously, Seth Rollins is the top star. So I think they've got to build some buzz. So I hope that they wouldn't wait until night 1. Like, I hope that they would kind of build. I mean, I know they keep teasing like his nightmare or his dreams are dashed or whatever the comment was that Corey made, and they made a reference to the nightmare. So like, they've been doing that, but I think they could do a little bit more to bring back the buzz, to make people really care that Cody's coming back, especially because we know they're going to go with the route. Like, we got the AEW EVP, that's coming on them. That's probably the Monday after Mania conversation, but we know it's coming. But they've got to build some buzz to make people kind of care again, I think.
Okay, can I push back a little bit on this Cody's going to the mid-card thing? Now, one of the ways that we know that guys will be pushed and women will be pushed is based on how big their paycheck is.
Well, true.
If Vince is going to invest in you, that is a way to make sure that you are not forgotten. I don't know exactly what Cody's making. I know what the rumors were very early on. and the rumors were very high end as far as what he was supposed to be making. Paul.
Oh, I was just gonna say about 5, maybe.
Oh no! Oh, you're trying to give me sign language as far as.
Sorry.
So whatever that is,
Yeah.
it's if we think of the two highest paid folks being Brock and Roman, and then right underneath that probably being Ronda, wherever Seth fits, wherever Becky fits, wherever Randy fits. The Miz is somewhere involved. I would guess that Cody is in that neighborhood. So I think that they're sort of forced to do something with him. They cannot Stardust him when he is one of the highest paid folks in the company.
I really hope you're right on this, Garrett. And I absolutely understand the logic. Like, I totally get the logic. It's great logic. I just hope it proves true long term.
Yeah.
I hope he has his theme music. I really do.
The AEW theme music.
The wrestling family thing. That would be hilarious if you just hear that. And
but
yeah.
I also think if he doesn't, then Jericho should start using it. But that's a whole
I've been seeing this from you. The how to do this character, or where the Jericho character going to go.
That's another topic for another day.
Very interesting. I mean, you called 2.0 being with him, so you've kind of been.
Well, I was feeling Inner Circle 2.0.
That's what I said. I said the same thing, but my sister pointed out that they probably can't use it because of NXT 2.0. But because I was like, I thought it was going to literally be 2.0 written out, like it's written out with Inner Circle, and then they went the other route, and I was like, of course they did.
Not to jump topics, but that's basically what I'm about to do here. Do y'all think the renaming of Jeff Parker and Matt Lee was due to Matt and Jeff Hardy coming
They
in?
made a joke on BTE about it.
Yeah, they made that joke there.
And Parker said they should have a names on a pole match.
Oh,
which give it to me. I mean, if you're gonna have a pole match, that's the pole match to have.
Yeah, because I have been joking about the Adam Cole on a pole match because of Red Dragon and Young
Kevin
Bucks,
and I have been doing the same thing.
You could even throw in Alex Reynolds and John Silver into that because but yeah, I would take a names on a pole match.
Three-way Cole on a pole match. My
Cole
God.
on a pole. Wow.
I literally figured out the Matt and Jeff thing like on the air as we were talking, and Matt Lee and Jeff Parker. I'm like, wait a second.
Well, because I was like, are they just going to be Lee? I thought they were just going to be Lee and Parker. I thought they were just going to do the WWE route where they drop the first name.
Cool Hand Ange and what is it? Magic something or
Angelo
Magic
Parker.
Daddy.
Daddy Magic.
It's something insane.
Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Ange.
Daddy Magic, Matt Menard. Yeah. But yeah, like Sam was alluding to, they did the whole thing on being the Elite this week, where I can't remember who was talking to them, and then the camera pans out, and Jeff and Matt Hardy. Yeah, and Jeff and Matt Hardy are standing directly behind them. They're like,
because it took me a second because they lead you into thinking they're talking about how all these great matches, and then I was like, wait a minute, they're taking too long, and I was like, oh wait, it's the other Matt and Jeff, and then they panned out further with Matt and Jeff behind Matt and Jeff. It was really well done.
Okay, go back to Cody for a second, and then we're going to move on to some AEW. Okay, so post WrestleMania, Cody makes the big splash. They're going to explain his character. I'll lean on Paul here because he's watching current WWE TV and he sort of understands, how they do this stuff. But you both can pop in if you want as well. Where does Cody go if we believe he's going to be in the mix, in the top mix? I'm sure we all believe he's beating Seth. That's kind of how it has to work. And if it doesn't, then, oh my God. But if we could sort of create a journey for him over the next 3 to 6 months, like Paul, how would you do that? Would you belt him fairly early? Like if we want him to be a top guy, how would we go about this?
So, okay, the way that Finley does things is when you're in a high-profile singles match at WrestleMania that's not a title match, the guy that loses the match usually ends up facing the champion on the next pay-per-view. So that would tell me that like Seth is actually going to be the one to face Roman and lose to him on on whatever the next pay-per-view is, WrestleMania Backlash. And Brock is going to take a hiatus until July for Money in the Bank, because they don't need him till they got tickets to sell for a stadium. Cody, because if they unify the belts, which is the plan, they're going to need a champion on Raw. And so, I mean, and Dave's already hinted at it. They're going to end up just doing what they did with Triple H. So maybe they have some sort of a tournament and Cody wins. And I'd give Cody the Raw title and he'd be the Raw champion. And then when Brock comes back, he's going to probably be back to feuding with Roman, or maybe he's feuding with Cody. Maybe you have a Brock Cody match at SummerSlam. I mean, and if they do that, then that's about Cody. Yeah, he's losing, but he's in that top mix. Everybody loses in WWE.
What is the time frame for the unification? Like, are they going to drag it out through like WrestleMania of next year?
Yeah.
I feel like the day after WrestleMania, the unification is over. We're putting the belt on the new guy.
Yeah. Brian Alvarez he had people doing Cody predictions, and like almost half the things had them promote titles and then promoting another unification match at SummerSlam. It's like,
yeah.
Like you're going to promote a unification match now, split up the belts, and then do another one in 3 months. Like, yeah, that sounds like WWE.
So our brother Andrew Zarian says WWE needs to make the Cody debut work. This is the example AEW wrestlers will use when it comes to going to WWE or not. I expect WWE to push him heavy. This is the first one to come over from AEW. This should be done properly. Calling it. He beats Rollins at Mania Monday. There is a backstage segment where Cody and Vince are face to face. So
get the fast payoff.
That stuff works.
Get the fast payoff.
That works for me. And
is he gonna present him with a sledgehammer? give him back the throne. that he destroyed.
And then Andrew follows up with Cody has to face Austin Theory in order to get the title shot. Maybe even playing on how Cody couldn't challenge for the title at the other place.
Well, that's his own fault. He played himself like Freddie Freeman.
They kind of have to use
Freddie Freeman.
Yeah,
we had to get them.
Wow, deep cut.
For those of you who don't know, Sam is a giant Atlanta Braves fan, and we were talking.
My apologies.
We were talking about the Freeman thing, and then the next day they made the trade.
Yeah, so. I made a tweet. Look, I love Freddie Freeman, and now there's more and more stuff coming out about it, and it sounds like his agents overplayed their hand a little bit. Like it kind of sounded like Cody did, and so I made the tweet with the little handshake emoji, and it said Cody Rhodes and Freddie Freeman, and it was like overplayed their hand to end up somewhere else or something like that.
Sam, that's a legit great analogy. Also for how much each of those mean to their franchise.
Yeah,
the Braves
definitely.
And AEW. Like the guy that's replacing Freddie Freeman, like in my mind, I understand this is a great move, but in my heart, my heart's broken.
Yeah.
Just like my heart's broken with Cody leaving AEW because he's such a big part of the founding.
Yeah, it is. It was the parallels are crazy, and I was like, I know only a small niche of fans will understand that tweet and get it, but I was like, because as I'm listening to stuff about Freddie, I'm like, we just did this with Cody.
Yep.
All right, let me quickly talk about this PO-op that we are doing, and then we'll move on to the Tony Khan ROH DDT stuff that has come out recently. Okay, so we have the PO-op, which I will display here. It's not going to have the Bruise News background here. So this is the PO-op. As you can see, it's the Bruise News 3/2022 PO-op. And so how do you get this? So you download the PO-op app on whatever mobile device. It is free. Enter your ENSETH address or email address. And then on the bottom right-hand corner, click on the Mint button. Select the secret word and type in capital C ODY for Cody, no spaces, capital MANIA. So Cody Mania, one word, capitalizing the C and the M. And then the PO-op will show up in your wallet. If you have any issues with this, fightgamemediapoop@gmail.com. PO-op is spelled POAP. If you mint it with an email address, meaning you don't have a digital wallet yet, it'll be reserved until you create your digital wallet in the future. It is completely free to mint, completely free to get a digital wallet as well. So why we do these things, they're fun collectibles. I did one with Andrew the aforementioned Andrew on We're Live Pal last week. We use them as sort of tokens, as digital collectibles, as a proof of attendance, and they may hold utility or value in the future. So as you can sort of see, we're doing all of these POAPs. We've done one for the Fight Game Media Network when the Fight Game Media Network turned one. And we've done a few different ones. And if you can sort of see how this is going, we may be giving away future things based on if you have a certain POAP or not. So go get it, go claim it, and mint it and all that jazz. And it will play into things down the line. Okay, now let's get to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is this Tony Khan story, where now Tony Khan is booking an ROH pay-per-view against Rampage, and we were all kind of wondering how this was going to work. In that, what is ROH? What is Tony buying? How is he looking to utilize the brand? And so they are going to run shows. They are running a pay-per-view. There is a match already, a big main event match that they've been building, FTR and the Briscoes. So let me start, and we'll go from the bottom left to all the way up to Paul. Sam, is there anything that you can glean? Are there any predictions you can make from what we know about ROH so far, and how Tony Khan may rebuild this company, this brand?
That's a really good question. I think that, Supercard of Honor is probably going to kind of set the tone for whatever he is planning to do with it. I do think it's a good thing that he has been upfront about how much he respects the history of ROH, and that it's not like a feather in his cap. Like I think he's going to make a serious effort to properly book them. He's already done it with the big match that he's already announced. They've been kind of teasing that on Twitter for months now. I kind of think this was probably the plan before Tony bought ROH, because they've been planning it they've been talking about it for so long. I'd like to see him bring in some guys. Like, I want to see Dalton Castle back. Like, that's one of the people I associate with Ring of Honor now. Obviously Jonathan Gresham, who we just found out before we came on here, he just won the Progress World Championship. So I don't know how that plays into, whatever their plans are. Clearly, I was like, I'm sure Tony was aware that this was going to happen. So I don't know how he plays that. So there's a lot of wrestlers that he can bring in. And there's even, because, Danhausen was in ROH right before all of this. So maybe, they have something with him over there. So I don't really know where they're going as far as this first card, but I think that they have to kind of do all big matches, because this is going to set the tone for whatever he's going to do next. And so he's got to kind of really go all in, so to say, no pun intended. And I think, because we talked about how Rampage will be on at 10 o'clock, and that I think the ROH show was at 8 o'clock that night. So they're obviously pre-taping Rampage. So hopefully that gives him a little bit more time to kind of focus on ROH, but I think he knows that he has to deliver, and he's not only making the AEW fan base happy, he has to make the ROH fan base happy and show like what he plans to do with it, I think.
All right, James, you've been following AEW very closely. You've been following Tony's booking. You've been following how he does business. What are your thoughts on this whole situation?
First of all, as it relates to that in particular, Tony has way too much on his plate. He doesn't need ROH booking on his plate as well. That needs to go to someone else. I don't care who else. Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels. I don't care. Somebody else. I'm really excited about this. I love the purchase more than most people. I think ROH has a lot of value. It was essentially the number 2 fed for almost 20 years. The reason it fell off, the reason it started to die is because of AEW. AEW created a talent war where between them and WWE, everyone got snapped up. If they own it, that's no longer a problem. They can let talent go there. They can bring in talent that may not quite work on AEW, like the Briscoes, who Warner Media does not want on one of their networks. They're perfect to be the big stars they've already been in ROH. I think it's great for the library as well, because now you have hundreds, if not thousands more hours of AEW superstars from their time in AEW to help
And a bunch of wrestling themes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I hate that they're going head to head with Rampage, but look, half of Rampage's audience is, well, a third watches it on DVR anyway. Now an extra 20,000 will watch it on DVR. I don't think it's actually a big deal. I really want to see the Briscoes FTR. I will be one of the people watching it on DVR later that night or the next day, and I don't think it'll have that big of an impact.
Paul, you and I have a little bit of a disagreement about how ROH will be utilized.
Mhm.
So give your big picture look here, and then I can we can have a little bit of a debate.
And you can tell me how. So my thinking, and so I had a theory, like when this was first announced, like I think we heard numbers of something like $25 to $30 million was the purchase price or something like that, which seems on the surface like an overpayment. But I think what they've done is they've built in the rights to the programming as part of the purchase price. So Tony Khan agrees to provide them with maybe 3 programming at a rate that they determine between the two of them. So maybe they place a value of $3 million on this annually on this programming, even though it's not really worth $3 million, but it makes it build up the actual purchase price to more than what it actually is. You see stuff like this in business all the time. So essentially they just keep doing what they've been doing. And that's running shows, maybe monthly, maybe weekly, whatever, taping the footage, airing it on Sinclair stations, and then, making a little bit of money on the pay-per-views and the ticket sales. Yeah. And you brought up, Garrett, it's not a lot of money, but it keeps the brand going and it keeps his talent busy. The expenses are minimal. They're not paying any extra for talent because they have about 130 wrestlers under contract right now. And they have 3 hours of network of primetime television to showcase them. They've got 3 hours of elevation every week featuring talent that could very easily be in ROH. I look at guys like House of Black that I would throw on there. FTR, we've hardly ever seen lately. Santana and Ortiz have barely been featured, although they're look like they're going to get a program now. But I mean, I could go on. Like there's a number of talent. And then you build these quarterly or maybe 6 a year pay-per-views that would be similar to an NXT takeover, which I really think a lot like Tony Khan, a lot of what he's doing, he's looking at what Triple H was doing in NXT from 2015 to 2019 and looking at that. And that was successful. Like they lost money because they had the cost of the PC and they were overpaying for talent to keep them from going to New Japan and ROH. Tony's going to be using talent he already has under contract and he doesn't have a PC to pay for. So that's why I think they could actually not lose money. They're not going to make a ton, but they won't lose money. And he's got a developmental brand and he keeps the ROH with.
Okay.
Paul,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Paul, I think this is a tiny part of this, really tiny, but I think it's worth mentioning. I don't know if you've seen this like I have and Kevin Ely has, but I've seen a lot of wrestlers in AEW regress work-wise now that they're getting paid to work maybe once a week, sometimes once a month. You see people who never would have looked bad in the ring look bad. Even Thunder Rosa, who's one of the most active talents they have, threw some of the worst punches I've ever seen in that cage match in her cage match win for the title. And these people need to be out there working multiple times a week like they would have in the old days. And this is just another opportunity to get people time in the ring.
Okay, so my debate with Paul wasn't on fundamentally what he is saying. My disagreement is more based on if Tony Khan is going to be spending his time with another wrestling brand, I think in the way that he does things, he is going to want to make it the biggest and best possibly that he can. He's going to want to utilize that IP to make it bigger than it ever was before because he's got the blueprint of how he built AEW and how he's done things, and he's got the money. Like there's really it's almost endless in a sense. I don't see him doing like, oh yeah, we're just going to follow this ROH blueprint that they've been doing and that they've been sort of on the radar at times, sort of not on the radar at times. I don't get any Sinclair television channels. So if Paul's plan is still the plan, I wouldn't be able to see the show unless I then went to a different app to then watch. And then you get into like this thing where, the reason AEW is successful is because they have cable television, right? Like that's the thing that made them. So I just can't imagine that we go, okay, we invested in this property and now we're just going to give it the same problems that it always had when Tony Khan, the billionaire family, has the money and maybe now the connections to make this product bigger than it ever was. That is my problem with that argument. Again, who knows what's going to happen, and we're going to have to wait and see. But we'll get this pay-per-view. It's really the first step into the future for this brand. And look, the NXT model I think is a pretty attractive way if that is a way to get a digital streaming place. Like if one of these, HBO Max, whatever, if the idea is like, oh, we're going to bring these X number of wrestling fans onto your service who are going to desperately want to watch ROH, maybe that is something, but otherwise I just don't see them doing it small time, because everything Tony Khan has done so far has been big time, competing with the biggest company in the world. Like you can't shints on this stuff because then people will think that you are not big time. And the idea for AEW is that they are just as big time as WWE, and that's how you have to present it to the fans.
My thoughts on this, Garrett, is and I keep going back to this, is True TV. True TV is a third Warner Media brand. You don't want to put AEW on True TV because True TV averages 189,000 viewers. And so no matter how well they did, if they got 300,000 viewers, which would be huge for True TV, it would look bad for AEW to get that few viewers. ROH, though, you put that on True TV, it can potentially blow the average numbers out of the water, getting 200, 250, 300,000. And it's just right there for the taking. I think Warner Brothers would probably enjoy it. And if you look at the True TV lineup right now, it is nothing but Impractical Jokers reruns and Tacoma FD. And you know what that sounds like to me? It sounds like Spike TV. It sounds like UFC era, WWE era Spike TV. It's an absolute perfect home for wrestling. And if they don't take that spot, potentially someone else could grab that spot. We've seen a lot of that in the past with both WWE and UFC buying companies legitimately to just take TV slots from other companies. And so whether they start with Sinclair or not, I think once it's going a little while, that is the absolute perfect spot for ROH. And that's a network that most everybody has, whether they watch it or not. Just about everybody's seen Impractical Jokers, just flipping channels. It's there and it's ready and waiting.
I saw Impractical Jokers live one time.
Did you? How was it?
It was fun. I didn't know the show. I didn't know the show very well. Buddy had an extra ticket and was like, you want to roll? It's pretty fun. I was like, yeah, it was fun. It
sounds like a good time.
Yeah, good time. Sam, did you have any thoughts?
I can see both arguments. I really, me personally as a fan, hope they go the NXT route, because that time frame when NXT was hot, that was one of my favorite things I was watching. I don't have access to Sinclair now. I have had it in the past, and that's part of the reason I've not had access to ROH on and off, is just not having a way to get to it. And I know it was on Fight TV and it was only an hour, and sometimes I would remember to watch and then sometimes I wouldn't. So I think a True TV type thing would be perfect, because I think True TV is more accessible than Access, right? For Impact. Yeah. So I think True TV makes sense. I understand Tony is probably going to want to go all out and invest and do a whole lot of things to it. But if he's going to go the NXT route from a few years ago, then I think that's the best thing for everybody. As far as, the quality of matches we'll get, the storytelling, the wrestlers who will be involved. And like you said, he's already got all this talent. Maybe we'll get some more. Maybe we can figure out how to get some women in there and get them some TV time.
There's a lot of good ones out there available right now.
Yeah, there are a lot.
Yeah. By the way, pre-AEW purchase of ROH, I don't think I would have bought this pay-per-view. I imagine there's going to be some surprises on that show.
Absolutely.
And,
Tony
I think
can't help himself.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm hoping to be there live. And I was not planning on going to the show when I originally made my Mania plans. And now I'm trying to get comp, but I might just buy tickets. After my comment about them, I probably aren't going to get comp.
I think being in Dallas, there's so many people that are going to be there that they're definitely going to pull somebody, I would think. Because I mean, especially because you have New Japan running there as well. I mean, they may not, now that the other thing has happened, I don't know how that affects that, but there's being in Dallas, they've got to pull somebody, I would think.
I'm really curious to see what the Rampage booking is going to be like that night. Like, we might see a Sean Dean main event there. It might be straight up dark.
But let him
give him his moment.
I enjoy dark, so.
They're taking it Wednesday, though. We could get a Rick Rude situation where
you have they're on
FTR's going to pull double duty.
Yeah.
FTR's going to open Rampage. And
Brody
ROH.
King, I would
for it.
Almost guarantee it.
Oh yeah, Brody, absolutely. Yeah, you have to have. He got so big, right there at the end. So I think they definitely should do that. Probably have a Young Bucks appearance.
And just more recently was just the announcement. We don't have a lot of information, but Christopher Daniels went on Twitter, and it was on the DDT Twitter feed, and he said that they have come to some sort of agreement to bring DDT's wrestler to the U.S., and I think there's going to be some flip backwards, sort of some of the AEW wrestlers go back to DDT. So there is some working arrangement there. And we'll bring up Andrew Zarian again, because he had mentioned, now he had told me this on We're Live Pal a few weeks ago, that someone in WWE thought AEW was going to have access to a global company's digital library for a possible future streaming service of sorts. Then the ROH thing happened, so I just assumed that that's what they meant, that it's the ROH thing. Andrew thinks that it could be something like DDT, where maybe they do get the license of the hours of the wrestling to put on a future streaming channel as well. So that could be, this could be even a bigger play. I don't know. That he was just sort of thinking back to that conversation that he had. So is this? It feels, I know, to maybe a niche audience, this is probably pretty big news. To me, as someone who doesn't follow DDT, it's kind of one of those, kind of cool. Well, I'm sure it'll make some people happy, but it doesn't seem like a big thing to me. Do anybody feel differently about that?
Go ahead, Sam.
I myself don't watch DDT. I have been told I probably should. I've seen like clips and stuff on Twitter, and I always enjoy it. And but I have friends who watch it, and they're excited about the news. And they are people who don't watch WWE. They do watch AEW, but they subscribe to other services and things like that. So they would probably, especially because they are AEW fans, if that is where they're going with that, they would probably be happy about that. I'm hoping that I definitely think that's probably going to mean that Maki Ito is back, which I'm very excited about. I hope that they involve the women this time and do it more than they did with Forbidden Door, because that didn't happen and we were asking for it and we didn't get it. So I'm hoping with this that this will mean more opportunities for the women. And I think it would be really cool to see some of the AEW wrestlers in Japan, that maybe I'll finally get around to checking out a show. And I think DDT is a lot of like really fun stuff, like Orange Cassidy, Danhausen type of things. So like I think that, so maybe it is super niche, but I think it's, competition is good. Exposure is good. There's not many places to wrestle on TV as it is even in just the US. And so I think it could be a really good thing. I'm going into it with a positive mindset, hoping that, it ends up being something that could be really cool. And maybe, it makes some Japanese wrestlers, maybe it gets them a better, maybe exposure here. Maybe there'll be some bigger stars here, kind of like what happened with New Japan when Cody and Jon Moxley and just different things. And even Jericho was going on over to New Japan, and it got, some people got really invested in that. So maybe the same thing happens with DDT Pro.
All right. Andrew corrected me live on the air. Live on the streaming. Andrew said international pro wrestling promotion. So I said global. It was actually international. So thank you, Andrew, for correcting me. And then we also have another note from Adam, who says Orange Cassidy versus Senshiro Takagi Stadium Stampede. I don't know Takagi, but what you're saying, Sam, is with the way that they do wrestling, Orange Cassidy would seem like a really good fit over there. Yeah. By the way, shout out to Adam, shout out to Andrew, Keisaku, Lewis, the Shadow Ranger, all the folks who are watching us live. Very much appreciative. All right, James, you had a quick thought.
I'm excited about the DDT thing just because it's an opportunity for me to see wrestling I'm not currently watching. I also think it's a good idea for AEW. I think we disagree on that, Garrett, because anybody from DDT they put on AEW television, and then they have hours of streaming content in the library of that person. That's now all of a sudden extra hours of AEW superstars, or at least that's how it can be presented to a streaming service. Just like DDT doesn't mean anything to anybody. Mid-South doesn't mean anything to most of America, but that Mid-South footage in WWE's vaults, that is WWE superstars. They're in Mid-South from back in the day, and that's, again, numbers they can provide, and they need to build up those numbers to get the streaming service. Like I said, anybody from that we've never heard of, they put on AEW TV, that is video footage of AEW superstars.
Paul, last thought before we move on.
So I think the crossover between American fans of DDT that are not already fans of AEW is probably less than the number of people in this room. And I'm talking about my room. So, I don't see how this really helps AEW other than what James said, which again, if they're purchasing the library, then that's
early Omega footage.
Yeah. But I mean, but I think it really helps DDT. So, I mean, if AEW has a vested interest in how DDT does, and maybe this involves purchasing, a minority ownership in it or something, or helping them, then it's both sides helping each other. But as we've seen where you have these kind of mergers or whatever you want to call it, working agreements, they always favor the bigger company.
So also shout out to Jordan who's watching. He says Danhausen versus Yoshihiko, the DDT sex doll, should headline Double or Nothing. Now look,
I'm all in, Jordan. All in.
That style of wrestling very much can be frowned upon by certain fan base, right? But
certain,
I don't mind.
Didn't Kota Ibushi have like a 3-star match with a sex doll like a few years ago in Dallas or something?
It was like it was like the midnight show. Like you had, it was like the show that was after midnight. So I guess the thing that I would say is there's a fan base who will frown upon that stuff. But there's a fan base. There's a fan base who is open to that stuff, and I think AEW will have to be very careful about mixing the two, because a lot of what they do, it has to be. It has to be. They have to pick their spots, right? You can't have nothing but wackiness for for a 30-minute segment and then go into something serious. Like, there is a variety show aspect that I think really works with AEW, but the overly silly stuff, the American audience, I don't know if it is really in tune to it yet. So you'd have to sort of gradually, get some acceptance. But there's other comments. So Andrew Mayer mentioned Noah is also owned by the same parent company that owns DDT, so there could be some synergy there. And then Adam popped in and said DDT has a lot of wacky stuff. They have the giant pandas and did Minoru Suzuki versus Takagi in an empty Tokyo Dome, and of course Yoshihiko the blow-up doll. It's weird and niche, but it can go. All right, so let's move on from this topic and let's talk a little bit about something that is near and dear to Sam's heart, which is New Japan Strong. They just announced for a Chicago match. Will Ospreay called him out. Jon Moxley accepted. What is the date of that show? It's April 16th,
I think. It's in Chicago. A
Fight TV pay-per-view. Yet another show that I probably would not have purchased, which I'm probably going to purchase now, at least even if I can't watch it live. And what do we think? This is kind of like the dream stuff that we were thinking was going to happen before the pandemic kind of blew everyone's plans away. But we've never seen this match before. Jon Moxley, Will Ospreay under the New Japan Strong umbrella, which means a specific style of wrestling. James, any early thoughts on this match?
It's just very simple that I am so excited. I feel like I'm living in a kind of a semi-golden age of professional wrestling where we're getting things like this on a regular basis. I'm just excited that it's happening, that they're able to make this happen with Jon Moxley, a major player in a major organization, and having the freedom to go out and take dream matches like this. I'm just giddy like a little kid in a candy store, man. I'm just happy about it.
Sam, I imagine this is right up your alley.
Yeah, it is. Because I was kind of already interested in the show anyway. I just because I had heard some of the. Now, of course, I can't remember the other matches off the top of my head. But anytime Jon Moxley is involved in New Japan, it's a good thing. He definitely we get a certain Jon Moxley in AEW, which I love, but a Jon Moxley and a New Japan is a different Jon Moxley, and it's a different. He just goes to a different place, I think, and he just turns it up a different notch. I think Will Ospreay is not really the type of person that you would think against Jon Moxley, because he does, just because of a lot of the things that he does. But I think it can work, and I think, like you said, it is a dream match. And I know, when you said it was a dream match, it reminded me of a while back before when CM Punk was not wrestling. Will Ospreay had said, I think Will Ospreay had said he wanted to wrestle CM Punk, and that became a conversation on Twitter, was that, that would be a dream match. Like, if CM Punk came back, could be. So that it could potentially happen now at this point. Like, this is something that could happen. And so I think that it will be a really great match. I've heard that the show is now sold out. I think it was almost sold out, but I think once the Jon Moxley match got made, I think is when it actually sold out. So that shows you what kind of draw Jon Moxley has. And he's, like I said, and the strong style type of wrestling. He's already going to be doing blood sport. Like, we've seen that type of stuff with him. So I think the more Moxley, the better. And so I'm just really excited to see him in strong. So anytime we can get him in New Japan, I enjoy it.
So for the podcast listeners, the chuckling is because Adam made a comment that we put on screen, which says Moxley in trunks is his Finn Balor demon. So
Adam is on fire in the comments.
He is. Thank you for that. It made me completely lose where I was going with that. So thank you.
All right, Paul. In an age where we have so much wrestling, you're going to be at WrestleMania. This is 2 weeks after WrestleMania, sort of another big time match. Can we even get excited about it now? Because it just feels like there's so much stuff coming through. But I mean, Moxley and Ospreay is a giant match.
It is. I mean, for me personally, and again, I realize that there's an audience for that, and obviously Sam and James are really excited for it. If this was, I would be way more excited if it was an AEW or in New Japan proper on a service I'm already paying for, or had some sort of stakes, like, oh, it's for the NJPW United States title, or, whatever. So for me, like, it's just a match. And I mean, and we seemingly get these like every weekend, and it's great. Like, again, there's a market for that, and it's awesome that people can see it. For me, it's like, there's so much stuff I'm already watching that I'm probably not going to spend $40 to get a pay-per-view just so I can see a great match. Like, it has to have some sort of personal stakes for me. But again, I'm not crapping on it at all. Like, it's awesome, and obviously it moves tickets and great. And if it means maybe that means we get Ospreay in AEW, I'm all for that. I love Will Ospreay, or an ROH, or whatever, like somewhere. But yeah, it's awesome.
We're gonna let Sam go here in a second as we focus the last segment of the show to ROH. But I just remembered the New Japan Cup is ongoing, and last night's show, or I guess it was this morning, we had Okada versus Shima, and Okada moved on. And in the surprise to me was that Naito beat Jeff Cobb. Ooh. And the reason why it's such a surprise is because I was talking to Dave Meltzer on Friday, and he said we both were trying to sort of figure out where they were going, and we assumed that Cobb was going to beat Naito and then beat Okada, and then maybe lose in the final, so that we set up a couple of different contenders. But no, Jeff Cobb loses to Naito, Okada beats Shima, and they move on to I guess this would be the final four on that side of the bracket. And we still have Zack Sabre Jr. against Will Ospreay, which I believe is tonight/tomorrow, and Shingo Takagi against Hiromu Takahashi also tonight/tomorrow. And then the big final four, and then the finals is next weekend. So very interesting. I tried to watch Cobb and Naito this morning, and then I ran into stuff and still haven't finished it. But this is where I'm picking up the New Japan Cup, so I will watch from here on out. Has anyone else watched, by the way?
I have been trying to make it a point to get to it, but I just haven't with everything else going on. And I would really like New Japan to put up the individual matches instead of, because it would make it so much easier. Because I'm not going to watch the whole cup. There are certain matches I've been told to that I've heard good things about, because it's hard to see because now New Japan won't let people post gifts and things like that. So it seems like it's a little bit harder for me to get. Usually people are talking about it, and so it seems a little bit harder to get some information about it. So I definitely want to see some of the cup matches, and it would just be a lot easier if they would break them down. So maybe I'll just end up watching the final. I don't know. But I want to see it because I know there's some good stuff there. It's just a lot going on.
There's so much great wrestling now. I feel like I'm always a week behind on everything but AEW. Like I finally have access. I got to see some great Impact matches this week for the first time in a while. And I'm really hoping I can catch up with the New Japan Cup here over the next couple of days.
All right, Sam, we're going to let you go, but tell us a little bit about what to expect on Power Bombshells, which will go up later tonight exclusively to our YouTube channel.
So this show, we talk a lot about New Japan Strong, about the last 2 episodes, including Jay White's his US of J challenge that he's been doing. He faced Swerve. This was pre-taped before Swerve showed up in AEW, so that was a really good match. There was a banger of a match that we weren't expecting in Ren Narita and Buddy Matthews, so I will tell people to go out of their way to watch that. I didn't expect that to be as good as it was. We talk about Thunder Rosa winning. We talk about QT Marshall's comments a few weeks ago about women's wrestling. So I had some thoughts about that. But yeah, so we had a really good show, and I didn't get to say it. I forgot to say it on there, and so I want to say it on here. I'm not watching the Crockett Cup, but Darius Lockhart is wrestling tonight for the NWA Junior Heavyweight Championship. Darius is a longtime favorite of mine. I've got to watch him wrestle locally for years. I think he's phenomenal. So I'm wearing his shirt right now. Hope he does well tonight. And so just wanted to give him a quick shout out before I leave.
And you can follow Power Bombshells on Twitter at Power Bombshells, and they'll tweet out whenever they do shows. Have we figured on a schedule? Is it going to be a Sunday night schedule?
I think it is going to be a Sunday thing. That's kind of what works for our schedule. So I think we are going to stick with Sundays or Sunday afternoons and have it come out on Sunday night. So I think that is the plan for now. We are going to do some stuff during Mania week. We're going to do a special show on Sunday that will probably be a little bit earlier. And then I think there's going to be some Twitter Spaces stuff too. So definitely make sure you're keeping up with Fight Game Media, social media, and Power Bombshells Twitter, because we will definitely let you know where we'll be.
Yeah, we got a whole menu of things for WrestleMania week, so we will announce all of that stuff. I guess we'd have to announce it next weekend, leading into the Monday, because the Monday show will be the Wraps WrestleMania preview. So we're coming up soon with everything WrestleMania, and like you said, we're going to try to do the first live stream with you and Mel. Shout out to Mel. And it'll be before things happen on Sunday. So we'll get some live chatting with Sam and Mel and people. It'll be interactive, just sort of like how this show is. So, all right, Sam, thank you for joining in, and we'll see you later tonight on Power Bombshells.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Sam.
All right, so let's finish this up. Let's talk about some UFC. And I mentioned this with Big Dave on Friday, but this Conor McGregor interview that he did on his YouTube channel, calling out Kamaru Usman, and we broke down a little bit about why would he want to do battle with Usman, and Dave says Conor's businessman, and he sees Usman is actually a ticket seller and a pay-per-view seller now because of his excellence. But Paul, we'll go first, then we'll talk, and then James, you can add in. Is this a real thing? Is this something that could possibly happen, or is Conor just throwing out a name?
Well, I mean, it'll happen if UFC wants it to, and I mean, it'll draw. It's going to piss a lot of people off because there's no rational reason Conor should get a title shot. But I mean, it's an easy title defense for Kamaru, and it's good money, and it's probably, other than Masvidal or one of the Diaz's, it's probably Conor's biggest money fight right now. So, and maybe he's got a puncher's chance, I guess, but a very small one.
Paul, do you see this? If this match happens, do you see this as the UFC trying to squeeze the last bit of money out of Conor on the way out? Because everybody knows he has like you said, a puncher's chance, and that is
Yeah.
it against Kamaru Usman. Like there's lots of other big fights they could make where he'd have a shot, like the Nate Diaz trilogy,
Yeah.
which Nate doesn't seem to want. If this happens, that tells me that they think this is kind of the last ride for Conor.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and that's why I don't think it's going to happen, because I think, like you said, there is big money fights out there for Conor Masvidal, the Diaz's. If it's a last shot, if he's got one fight left on his deal, and I think he just signed a new deal for like maybe 5 or 6 fights. If Ryan was watching, he could correct me on that. But so I think that on the last fight that he would do it, and then he'd probably go do the Triller thing, or like maybe try to get in against Golovkin or something, to get big money, and then retire. He's got more money than God, so he doesn't need the money, but he'll always take it.
The thing is, as to will this happen, Conor would fight anyone, like anyone. The Conor's not scared of anyone. I think Conor believes he can beat anyone, but there is no worse matchup in the UFC. To me, this is worse than Khabib. While Kamaru might not be as technical as Khabib, he makes up for that in his size. Like he's such a bigger guy. He will annihilate Conor. And again, I don't think Conor's done. I don't think he's championship level anymore. He can still beat most people, but he doesn't want to fight most people. He wants title shots. He wants the big money. I think he's right that Usman now feels like kind of maybe the best pound for pound guy in the UFC right now. I believe he's still completely undefeated. But man, it's just that means it's the beginning of the end for Conor if this happens.
Okay, here's a question for me. We just saw Colby Covington beat Masvidal. Covington versus Conor is not a bigger fight than Usman?
I think it actually is. I think that would be a big money fight because people want to like Conor. People automatically hate Colby Covington. I'm kind of surprised that's not the fight he called out.
There's a reason why, and my memory is failing me, but I brought this up with Ryan. It might just be the
title.
Well, I brought this up with Ryan, and there's a reason why, and I can't remember what it is, and I wish he was here, but there's a reason why that's not the fight, and I don't know what it is.
Tune in to the clinch to get the answer to that question.
I'll definitely ask Ryan on Monday.
Paul's failing memory is good marketing.
Yeah, but but I think it's something to do with something between the two of them, I think.
Okay. Yeah. And there is the draw. Like, I think there is a money draw in the fact that if Conor were to win, like you said, if the puncher's chance worked out, first three-weight champion, I believe, in UFC history. And I think that would definitely draw some eyes. And there's a lot of people that absolutely will go in thinking, oh, Conor's going to wipe the floor with this guy, because there always is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I find Conor fascinating. I think a lot of people find Conor fascinating. When I saw the Usman thing, I was like, oh my God, that just sounds like death. Yeah. But when Dave said Usman is actually a giant draw for them now, then it makes a little bit more sense because of what Conor is there for and what he wants. I still feel like, there's still money in Masvidal. There's still money in Nate Diaz, but maybe going through a war with Nate Diaz is less of something that he would want to do than just to get sort of ground and pounded for 3 rounds and then be done with it. I don't know.
And especially Masvidal is a winnable fight for Conor. Conor can absolutely beat Jorge Masvidal. It could go either way, but he's in that fight where he's absolutely not in this fight. And I wish that was the fight that was coming.
All right, Paul, I know you want to talk a little bit about the show from yesterday, but we won't spoil too much because you're going to be able to talk about that in great depth with Ryan on In the Clinch. But talk about it. We looked at that card and we were like, wow, there's like not a ton on the card, but UFC's hot. They sold out they sold lots and lots of tickets. From what I understand, the environment was terrific. So quickly talk about that.
Actually, I would say, like, for a hardcore MMA fan, like,
we main event. I meant main event, like marquee fight. Point of view.
Well, the thing is, like, Aspinall, that guy, he was in the main event. He might be challenging for the heavyweight title in the next year or two. He's a real prospect. And he wiped the floor with Alexander Volkov, who is a former Bellator champion and top contender. But the guy that everyone's talking about on this show is Paddy Pimblett. And he could, it's way early, but he feels like the next Conor McGregor. The crowd, like, he was the main event to the crowd in the O2 Arena. 16,000 fans chanting his name, singing his song. They're singing, "Oh, Patty the Batty." He even has a valet. Meatball Molly McCann. She fought earlier on the card and she won.
Them.
She got a highlight knockout of the year. And then all she wanted to talk about after the fight was Patty the Batty. And then she comes to the ring. She's still wearing her gear. She's like jumping up and down, screaming, cheerleading at ringside.
To have a hype man who had the best knockout of the night, you can't beat that. You can't beat that, Paul.
No. And then he took some early damage, came back, got a first round submission, cut a promo after. He's dancing. The crowd is just eating out of the palm of his hand. And then when the show was like after that, there was still 2 more fights, and the crowd was like way down, like they were there for Patty. And to me, it feels like Conor when he fought in Boston early in his UFC career, and then the next fight after that, he headlined a card, and I think that's where we're heading with Patty Pimblett. He's probably not ready as a fighter, but he's definitely there ready as a personality, and he's got the crowd behind him.
If Patty can just keep winning, he is the next big deal. And what I would say for anybody that didn't see this card, just go back, watch the main card. The crowd is so hot. It feels like a big deal. The Meatball Molly McCann, which by the way, the first 3 times they said Meatball Molly McCann on air, I was cracking up. I love that name. I love that she is down with calling herself Meatball. And then the fact she immediately as soon as they interview her after this killer knockout, she starts hyping up Patty. That, like, I've never seen anything like that. And then for her to go to the back, like wipe off the sweat and come right back out in her outfit, like dancing with the crowd. It is really an electrifying moment. One of the better UFC moments in the last few years, which have been hot years for the UFC. This is definitely worth going back and checking out. And when the Patty fight ended, I went and took care of some errands, and I came back just in time for the Aspinall main event. I'm going to watch the others later tonight. Like those 2 fights, Molly McCann and Patty the Batty. Those are the 2 fights to see. The Aspinall fight's quick. It's great. I haven't seen the others, so I can't tell you.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd add is Daniel Cormier brought this up, and he looks exactly like Owen Hart in 1993. Patty. That's the other thing. So yeah.
All right, so you'll talk about that more with Ryan Frederick on In the Clinch, which you guys record Monday evening and goes up into the Fight Game Media Network feed very early Tuesday. But also, James, your podcast will be up probably, I don't know, midday Monday. The Boom with you. Is Kevin Ely back?
Kevin Ely is back.
Sorry,
he's back from South by Southwest. It's exciting to have him back tonight. Really excited to talk about everything from this week and get his takes on the things he wasn't there for last week. And if you want to hear me talk UFC, sportstalk977.com, the largest all sports radio station in the state of Louisiana, Wednesday, 3:30 Central.
All right. And then I guess the last thing to plug here is Paul and the Dynamite Show, the AEW Dynamite recap every Wednesday night. We put it up on our Patreon a few hours after the East Coast airing is done. So if you are, even if you've just finished on the West Coast, it is generally, I would say 75% of the time it is up by the time West Coast TV is done watching the show. So have you figured out what you guys are going to do WrestleMania week when you're going to be out of town?
So on the 30th, Mike Gilbert is going to step into my chair and co-host for me, or he'll be hosting. And because Jeff wants no part of the hosting, he did it for 2 weeks, and he's done with it. We had some reasons for that. And then I think on the 6th I'll be back, but hopefully maybe if it's looking like I don't make it back to Winnipeg by the 6th, then I'll probably maybe ask James to do it. But I think I'll be back.
All right. Well, thank you both for being here. I really love doing this show. I don't have a set time. I don't have a set time or day because it's kind of based on what happens. I don't want to force topics, but I think over the next few weeks, we're going to have a ton of stuff to talk about. And WrestleMania weekend, it will be on Friday because it's going to lead into some other stuff. But anyways, thanks to all the people who were in the chat. Really appreciate you all. And thanks to Paul, thanks to James, and thanks to Sam. Power Bombshells will be up later tonight in our YouTube channel. So I am Double G. See you when we see you. Peace out.